Let me know. My name is Helen Anthony. Be on finance, that's calling to order a regular meeting Wednesday, July 16, 2025 at 5:31 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes.
Counselor Inglot,
Here.
Councilwoman Graves,
Present.
Councilor Sanchez.
Present.
We have 5 present, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Ruth Cochio from the city solicitor's office for us this evening. And also our wonderful clerk, Lauren Marissa. Thank you for getting me for us. And with that, would you please read item number 1?
An ordinance and amendment of chapter 2024-1, number 1, approved January 12, 2024. Of the ordinances of the city of Providence approving the capital improvement plan for the fiscal years 2025 through 2029.
Wonderful. And who is coming up first to the table?
I think if we may swear everybody in, that way I get us in, and then, we can take whatever department you
All right, and everyone will stand, we'll swear you all in. You place your right hand. And so I'm going to prayers with that. I think we are going to give the food of what can everybody.
I do.
Can you say your name inside of the parking lot and shoot out your.
John Spady, Director of Post Process Protection.
Anthony Adams, Deputy Director of Public Property. Greg Hoffman, Chief Engineer.
Which point Bay Director, W?
Leader, so managed engineering, property engineering.
Brian Anderson, Deputy Chief Engineer. Lawrence Mason, Chief Financial Officer, Civil Governance.
Crystal Lindbergh, Deputy Finance Director and Jobs.
Thank you so much, everyone. Before we start, I believe we have an amended, CIP, which we all have red lines in front of us. May I mark that as, this is, it's a substitute, I'm sorry, we have a substitute for, and I don't know who that, we have a motion, mark this as. Right,
We're just substitute.
Substitute. May I have a motion, so. Second. All right, motion made by Councilor Graves, seconded by Councilor Ingersoll, all in favor, and aye, all opposed. Thank you. So you have the red line road in front of me. I just want to, just remind those of you who were last time. We, are, talking about this, plan by department, and we had, arts, culture, and tourism, and, last meeting as we did parks. And I know there were a lot of questions concerning, whether our, how our CDBG net funds, are not CIP funds, how those were being amended by with the CIP funds for our parks projects. And I just want to say that, Kevin Delgado sent out a really looking spreadsheet. He has answered a lot of those questions, on how those, CIP numbers were supplemented. So I just hope if anyone has specific questions on that house project, that they'll refer to the email that we got filed, and also to don't hesitate to talk to them about the particular project or the status, because Wendy's not here to see. Okay, so, with that, I also want to say thank you very much for printing our, budget book, because many of those budget books ended up in the trash already. We need to fix some of this sad. Thank you. My citizen, all right, the ones in the clerk's office, I'm not sure if disappeared. I'm not sure. Some people, some members of ours have thrown theirs away themselves.
Recyclable.
All right. But I will say that, I appreciate, because not only do we have the, what is printed here, we also have, I want to make sure that people see the, page number 17, starting in those minutes. We all wanted to know which bonds, the dates of the bonds and what projects were funded by what bonds, and you can see, starting on page 19. You can see the 2017 bond, 2019 bond, so you can see all the projects that have been bonded. to date, so I just want to make sure people can refer to that, Yes, another way, in case people are trying to mix up. Get a little mixed up, I think we can also tell that, if you look on page 19. If you look at the funding, other expenses, it ends in 17, yeah, that means the 17 month, so. You see one, so just in case people get. Not around. I mean, try to figure out what's going on here, but anyway, so with that, I think we'll call our next department, unless you have anything you want to update us something, yeah.
I don't know if you'd like me to just disclose the red line changes for the record.
But where you and I recognize that we have not precedent. Okay. Please review the red lines.
Of course, so the first, red line, addition to this is a, work to be done on the Apples Avenue lots. It's a $200,000 allocation and is coming from the previous allocation for Camp Cronin. Additionally, funds from the Camp Cronin line have been reallocated to pre-Metcalf Park improvements for a water park and Ward 4. And the balance remaining from the Camp Cronin line item, which is $100,000, has been added to the public infrastructure improvements line, which resides in the planning section of this.
And what was that number again that is added to public infrastructure?
100,000.
And the three. That's in, just.
That's in the Parks Department, that is moved to the Parks Department and is $450,000.
Okay.
So in net, the total outlay for fiscal year 2026 has not changed, it's just been reallocated amongst those line items. And the total value of this capital improvement plan has not changed.
Thank you. Okay. So with that, I don't even know which department is, we have it in the third floor open out. We take our motion. How about public works? And so I would just say with public works, we are separating out assistant director that we're going from sidewalks or just sidewalks. Streets and sidewalks, okay, so this is gonna be everything but streets and sidewalks tonight. Exactly. Or, no, come on, and just start, whatever you're gonna have.
This is everything, Madam Chair, but in terms of like details or conversations about, this sidewalk, my sidewalk, that sidewalk, that is probably better handled at the future meeting.
Okay.
But,
Hi.
You shy. We don't have enough chairs for you, we,
well, they should sit, I will sit behind them, because they're the experts.
Okay. So I imagine what we're doing right now is we're going to go down to projects that are listed under the Department of Public Works. So year 26 through the 15 we're doing. And anyone want to start us off? Bowden Street.
Sure, start us off.
We just asked Bowden Street.
Bowden Street, so Bowden Street has been an existing issue for us, for quite some time, it provides quite a steep drop off. To the east of it, and with stormwater runoff, it's become an erosive issue and a safety issue. We continue to lose our guardrail, which makes Bowden Street a safe traveled way. So in the interim, we've had out some temporary barrier for about 3 years now, which has been working great. And we've reduced the travel to one way in that Bowden Street to accommodate that temporary safety accommodation. So this is to address a more permanent fix, to reopen Bowden Street to two-way travel and to address the stormwater runoff issue that exists.
Okay. And the allocation, so it's the 27, 28, and so you haven't done anything on this today?
That's correct. Yeah, we have some concepts that we've developed in-house, but pending funding, we have not advanced those concepts.
Should we do item by item, should we let, should we just go through anything else about things for few projects?
We'll go right down the list. So bridges, this is an exciting one for us. We're in the middle of developing a 20-year asset management plan for our bridges, as well as developing design solutions for 3 known bridges with issues. We had an update today. We've got a design ready for the Apples Ave Bridge over the Woonasquatucket River. There's a piece of the foundation, the abutment is missing. We have an issue with the Narragansett Bay Commission outfall that's putting water behind that above. Runoff. So it's gonna address that issue. Rhode Island DOT has alerted us to some findings on Memorial Boulevard North Bridge. So that abuts the Providence River. And we just found out today that that's been added to the statewide transportation improvement program. So we went from having maybe a $4 million project to $400,000 Band-Aid until the REDA comes in with that project in about 2030. We're also looking at some stabilization on the Point Street Bridge. Looking to address some steel loss and some steel members that need reinforcing, again, to get this to a point where DOT can come in into a future time and do a more substantive repair. And so we're trying to prolong the life until a more substantive rehab can come in, where it's not really within our affordability. This 20-year asset management plan will really kind of set us forward and tell us what we need to do over the next 20 years and how we budget for that. We're anticipating that that's going to be coming late fall or early winter, but it's a look at all of our 52 bridges throughout the city and how we can plan around that. So it's the first time I think that we've done this in the history of the city, and getting a great understanding of what bridges we have and what condition they're in. Canada Pond Dam. This is a dam that the city inherited from as an abandoned dam. We've done some work in the past to kind of shore up and address a DEM critical finding or our low level outlet, which would drain that pond impoundment in the case that an emergency has been repaired and functioning. There's been discussion about removal of the dam in the past, which is really championed by our Parks Department to turn that area into a park. But absent a plan to remove the dam, we're looking at, again, stabilizing measures to ensure that this liability does not become a liability. So we're looking at some seepage improvements and some concrete repairs to ensure that we can get more life out of this thing. Nate, do you want to address citywide traffic calming and study implementation?
I think both of those are one and the same. We do have a citywide traffic calming policy that we follow in terms of addressing requests for speeding and traffic calming. For the infrastructure needs, so these items there for implementing that process. The process includes both some. If there's an approved request based on the data that we collect, after we do our studies, there's a temporary measures that are put in, and for about a year, and it's studied and evaluated. Neighborhood meetings are held, affirmative final infrastructure measures we put in, so some of those funds are used both for temporary measures. A little bit of money is there for staff time to do some of the studies, and most of that money is for permanent measures. Infrastructure capital.
Said that from your the implementation study.
Yeah, I think that's just a matter of how it was. It's one of the same. It's mostly the actual temporary permanent infrastructure and traffic calming measures that are put in. It's just a matter of official budget, it's how it was worded in the bond.
I just got mixed up in a minute. I know we're trying to get through this, but I'm just wondering how you calculated the amounts for both those items, 7 and Nothing for 28, 29, 30, and we've got, the implementation, we've got 500,000. So how was that, how were those figures calculated
Yeah, I think,
or estimated?
yeah, a lot of the items in there after fiscal year 2027 were funded. So that's to be decided, as I understand.
Yes.
And that bond is going to move forward.
Yes, and Madam Chair, you look down towards the bottom, there's also line items for traffic engineering and traffic infrastructure.
Yeah.
When this schedule was built, I used the language that was used in the ordinance at that time, and so it didn't, I think I probably could lump more of these lines together. But you can see that there's an intended use of the traffic engineering line in fiscal year 2026 and 2027, which then shows the outlay of the other years above.
Okay. Yes, please.
So just to clarify, sorry, no, it's a same question.
Yeah.
So the 650 for the traffic engineering, is that one of the traffic calming and traffic fund study implementation or zeroed out for FY26?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, so the traffic engineering line picked it up in 26, and then they roll into 27. Next year, I probably will merge those lines into one line, but they've repeated that last year.
Maybe we're still-
Okay. I know we're done. If anyone wants to ever interrupt, who's here. But now we're on, we feel point, like not so previously, like not so very much again. Hey, I think, oh, we got the whole stuff, we take you so right. Okay, all right. Please proceed.
All right, the Collier Street retaining wall is a project that is now complete with a leftover balance. Collier Street has a series of retaining walls leading from Smithfield out to a shopping plaza. Those walls had failed with the slope about to collapse into the ambulatory care center operated by the Marion Hospital. Happy to report that we've placed 3 or 4 retaining walls as part of that project. So it was a really good, successful project with remaining balance. So that's good. The Foxconn Hurricane Barrier System, we've just completed a series of projects there, primarily using ARPA funds, but some previous CIP dollars as well. We're wrapping up our 3rd and 4th projects respectively. We'll begin preparing for future projects through these efforts. OPM and construction management services is something that we have previously not tapped into. But as this has become available to us, this is how we'll fund our external project managers. Owner's project manager. Right, so this supplements our staff, what we're really focused on the day-to-day operations, and these OPMs and CMs are on the ground, doing the construction oversight every day and constituent relations as well. Roads, this has been a long-standing item in the CIP. This funds our capital improvements for resurfacing as well as maintaining the roads. In the past 5 years, we made an effort to maintain every road that we've paved the previous 10 years. I can say confidently, we've never done that as a city. So we're trying to spend less to extend the life of our roads, and we'll continue doing such through these next years. The amount of utility work is really complicated, the work that we do. We all know that once we pave a road, we're trying to limit the amount of utility cuts that are coming after. Brian's been doing a great job in managing that and coordinating those efforts. It's frustrating for us, when we come up with projects, we can offer that to the utilities, and that can really push our project out 2 to 3 years. I think we've all been affected by that in everyone's wards. Again, that's something we're trying to consolidate efforts on and focus on in areas we can be in and done in one effort. Sidewalk, similar situation. It's a comprehensive approach to not just replacement, but isolated panel replacements and grinding, really finding the right treatment so we can extend our dollars to make more sidewalk improvements and take away trip hazards and obstacles for users of the sidewalks. I'm sorry.
These are very important section.
Yeah, no, that's one that's near and dear to me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
I thought you'd want to know.
Yeah. Also sewers, then. Same with sewers, we're wrapping up a very large ARPA allocation, $6 million of repairs and maintenance. And first time we can say we've done that in 70+ years. I testified at a budget hearing about what we've done. I don't have those numbers, they're somewhere in this binder, but I think we've lined about 10 miles of pipe, so putting a pipe within a pipe to extend that life for another 50, 100 years without excavating. And we've also had numerous excavatable repairs, sometimes combined with a line. Our plan is to continue that approach where we're cleaning and investing in those pipes and coming back with that same kind of construction. We also have a known project which we just got our CRMC permit for. There's a sewer running through the Butler Hospital campus. Where we know we have issues, we know we've had backups, and through our most recent walk, we know we're still backing up. So we're going to be getting that out into the bidding world as soon as possible. Also in some of these out years, we're developing plans to address stormwater pollution or stormwater quality. And not necessarily quantity, that's our regulatory charge from DEM. We have a draft plan in with DEM for their review, and we're anticipating comment back any day now. So really set our path forward in how we roll out water quality measures throughout the city in the separate stormwater watersheds that we have. So we anticipate another year or two for design and permitting, and that's where we start to ramp up spending in 2020. Staff overtime.
I think that's a separate item for, some of the projects in our plan, so traffic engineering is a separate CIP line item for traffic engineering. And I think we allocated a little bit of time for, traffic engineering staff full time to help with a lot of items in those, traffic signal improvements, traffic studies that are the projects within that traffic engineering, CIP.
What circumstances are they overtime? With us?
I think if you look at some of their obligations, the office people, traffic engineering, I think there's quite a few requests that we get for traffic knowledge and everything, and they keep up doing some of the traffic counts and actually breaking down the data in there. Also, a lot of the traffic engineering projects like that we're putting out right now for traffic signal improvements, just helping to manage that. Answering questions from contractors, paying bills, just managing the construction of that. Also within that, if you go down the next two items, there's a plan to spend the CIP line item for traffic engineering, and there's also one of the projects in that is to do a lot of traffic signal studies to maximize or optimize some of the traffic signal timing. We also look at putting in some pedestrian friendly signal phasing, such as pet phasing. We did pedestrian intervals at all the city signals. So that's some of that overtime will be spent to kind of help manage those endeavors.
And that's outside of regular hours, work hours?
Yeah. It's beyond their capacity with their duties and their duties and that kind of thing.
Right, anything else on this list?
Yeah, the next two items, traffic engineering, there was a plan put together to, we actually combined it with some of the speed camera safety fund, because a lot of the projects that are eligible to use for both those funds are similar. And we just put a plan together, that I think, in the last week, I learned that some of that funding that I felt we had is actually unfunded past 2027, so there's got to be an adjustment. But some of those items in that plan to use the R 1.7 item, CIP traffic engineering is existing traffic signal improvements, some other new maintenance that need to be done on existing signals. There was an item in there for brand new traffic signal. The traffic signal operational studies that I mentioned, at 190, well, we won't do all 190. There are 190 traffic signals in the city that the city owns. A lot of those have been recently studied. So, I think it's probably maybe about 100 that would be to study over 2 years. There's also money there for paving markings and bus lanes and bike lanes. There's a little bit beyond our operational striking budget. I did the remainder loans, some safety, flashing safety signings. Rectangular rapid flashing beacons, they crosswalks, driver feedback signs, they're permanent signs that tell drivers what their speed is. Some flashing school zone signs at school zones will indicate that it's 20 miles per hour on school zone, so. That's in the plan, that plan probably needs to be evaluated a little bit because it was based on, funding being available in 2027 and beyond, that's not, so it's gonna have to be kind of reprioritized and be evaluated.
Okay, yes, are we ready for questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Councilor
I
Brady.
just was wondering, under the traffic engineering, why so much on 2027 over the other years?
What was the question, why is it so much in 2027?
Yeah. Opposed to the other years. Because it's,
Quite a jump.
Yeah.
2027.
Yeah, I think,
What is that?
when I received that, some of it hasn't been spent, it's been pushed off from previous years, I think. It's my understanding, a lot of that. That we had in 2026. The reduction was about, we were left about 1.4 million today. And. I'm not sure why that's indicated in 2027, with my understanding, yeah, some of the funding wasn't there. It's after. The reduction I talked about, that I learned out last week, that some of the CIP money in that 1.7 traffic engineering was not funded past 2027, it's about what. It's about 1.4 million left, and that's what the plan is going to be based on.
So when we had prepared this schedule, we were using estimates based on what we had available now, what we thought would be spent in fiscal 25, and then what we see in the hours. I think, my understanding when this was submitted is that there was some planning work that was happening and scheduled, and so that 2026 will be a year where we're effectuating the things that have been planned, and 2027 is when we really start utilizing speed camera fund and all funding sources to get dollars out the door. With that said, these out years really are rough estimates. Construction timelines are very, very hard to predict. And so our primary concern was ensuring that all of the funds that we had now were allocated to the upcoming fiscal years. So the direction I've always provided was if you have bond money in your hands today, I would like to see that spent as quick as possible. And so I believe that part of the reason why 2027 looks a little higher is by just trying to realistically expect that we can expend all of the dollars we have. And for whatever reason, if it's decided that it was in 26 versus 27. With that said, I don't know that there's a desire to like not do work in 26 and do it all in 27. It's really just what the estimates were at the time.
We have an actual plan for the traffic engineering.
Yeah, we submitted that. It was combined with what we thought we would have for the speed camera safety fund. I think we did submit that to this board too, last couple of weeks.
Oh, it was.
Yes.
So it's been, I'm sorry, did you just send that through? It's probably sitting in our emails or my email.
I think I sent it, I think you were, yeah.
Okay, I'll make sure that I see that.
But as I said, I think since that time, I was made aware that some of the funding in 2027 wasn't available, so it's gonna have to be, it's less money available than I thought, so it's gonna have to be, that plan is gonna be.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll make sure that I check that and send it to everyone.
Yes, I do see that there's $500,000 of unfunded project works in fiscal year 2027, which is the reason for that jump. I think they were hoping to locate and identify funding by 2027 for that work if possible, but at this time it's not. Yeah. Great. There could be, yeah.
right, we are currently planning on borrowing again in July 2027, which is why you sometimes see pickups in 2027. Because that's when we would be spent the dollars that would come.
Just before I open it up, so this list of projects. These do not include. The money that's already been allocated for different projects and with different bonds, or does this include some of those bonds?
It does, so the 2027 allocation includes $500,000 of unfunded money, and the balance in 2027 are funds we have available. So there's about $1,066,000 available in the existing bonds for next year, for the 2027.
And that is attributable to just, to what, to which project?
Traffic engineering.
Okay. Okay, Councilor Ravenbaugh,
He's shocking that I'm not gonna ask many traffic engineering questions, so you're good, but, I think most of my questions are for Craig, and just to stay on the record, Craig, you're such a gem, thank you so much for everything. Every time you come before us, it's like, thank you. I just had a few questions, one was, for the Fox Point hurricane barrier, and do I need to use a more outward voice with the AC, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the Fox Point hurricane barrier system, are there any, which I'm excited to see the big investment? Are there any plans for any of these improvements to help protect areas that aren't just downtown, like the south side?
No, so the Fox Point hurricane barrier is designed to protect downtown. Yeah. Yeah, we may adjust these balances in the out year. I think that was kind of our worst case scenario, but after completing some of these other projects that we've done over the past couple of years, we feel a bit more confident in maybe reducing that number. I know our federal partners have some work to do on their portion of the system. And I'm excited that we've scheduled another inspection with the levee safety folks from the regional office. Come do an inspection of both parts of the levee system to recertify us. So we both made big steps on both the federal and the city portion to ensure our longevity.
Yes, please.
I have two questions about the dams. Oh, no, I'm lying, about the bridges.
Yep.
How, you had mentioned that some of the bridges are then eligible to provide us STIP funding. We know how many of the bridges we have could then be transferred to be paid for by STIP.
So there was a new revision that came out July 1st. I just looked at it real briefly this afternoon to see what's surprised. I don't know what's coming up. But that's going to be part of that asset management program and report that we have by year's end. So we'll know what we can depend on that for.
And then how did we determine the dam amounts that are in here? Then we're still waiting on the asset management plan. Are these just estimates?
Yeah, so for bridge, it's estimates. I mean, that's a very high level estimate, but we're trying to refund that line item. For a couple of years now, it has not been funded.
Yeah.
Just because we didn't have a plan, but as the plan is coming into view, yes, we are ready to go. We're ready to start with. The dams outside of that asset management program, I don't know if that was a question you asked there.
Oh, no.
Maybe it's the outside question.
Oh, yeah, I should. I was just wondering where the estimates came from since the asset management plan is still in the.
Yeah, it's due to some work that we've seen, what I would consider minor maintenance, where in the past, we may have realized something for $100,000. And the same repair last year cost us $250,000. Bridge work has inflated far beyond any other, the other construction trades that we experienced, so we've tried to build that up. And from 26 to 30, you can kind of see that inflating with a 20% inflation factor, or 25% inflation factor.
When did you say that the plan will be ready at the end of the year?
Yes.
Okay. And then can I ask, please, two more extra stuff. For the road maintenance, do we know? The answer is probably yes, and I just don't know what it is. Is there an overall like 5-year plan of which those that we're planning for? Let's see. Repave and upgrade, is there like a?
So that is what we're going to start working on now.
Okay.
It takes us a little bit of time from issuance or closing on the bond to planning. We've had such a volume of work that we're now clearing some of those work objects out to be able to start focusing on that. We're hopeful to bring someone on in the next 2 to 4 weeks to start working on that plan. And of course, we'll share that with the administration and the council as we understand. And it's typically not a 5-year plan, it's as far as the funding allows us to look forward.
Yeah.
And we're looking at all the utility data. We share a bunch of map products with you. If you like maps, you'll love what we send.
Excellent. And then the other is less of a question, more of a comment, just to say out loud. I'm meeting with the council person from Cambridge yesterday. He's a delight. And, he was sharing that they, in the process you're describing now, like creating their plan for where to go, they then give that plan to the utility and they're like, this is what we're paving. Get in while you can. If you don't get in now, we're gonna charge you a whole bunch more. If you get in now, like you're good. If you don't get in now, good luck, bud. And so Cambridge has actually like gotten a lot of their utility work done, like they have like some of the lowest gas leaks and stuff because the utility got in while they could because it's cheap, and then they don't charge the roads at all cycle. So just sharing that is like, you probably know to the colleagues in other places, but I was describing some of the challenges that we've discussed before. And
Yeah, so that is what we do. We share that plan, but our turnaround is much quicker. Right, from the time that we get that bond closes, we've got years of spending.
Yeah.
In that Trinity Square example, the utility work puts us out for 3 years. Right, it's a big area, they've got to now scramble to allocate resources. Right, so we're really 2 to 3 years behind the utilities that's both gas and water. Again, it's a balancing act that we have to try and figure out to show that, you know, we're progressing and being able to spend those dollars down and invest. While trying to balance out the utilities needs also.
And also just thank you for that follow-up on the bad utility work on the road that happened recently. You followed up so fast on them that. Bringing it back to where it should have been after, I think so, just thinking about.
Again, you know, part of our planning over the past few years has tried to consolidate utility work in certain neighborhoods. I know certain neighborhoods look like they got a lot. We're seeing a lot in the north end right now, Charles area, Branch Ave. Trinity Square is another one of those, so we're trying to. Brian's been doing a great job of getting gas and water to talk, which I know is a very simple task, but hard for these organizations to do. And trying to follow one another and have a comprehensive plan.
Yes, Councilor Peterson, thank you. To echo somewhat, Councilor Randall said, I really do appreciate the attending and everything that you do. When it gets to a point where it's a drastic situation, at least in my ward, you guys have been so wonderful at addressing it so quickly. Through my neighbors, thank you. Brian, you're gonna get this up often. So, except for everything that you do, it's really appreciated. I came last time we had CIP to stress a little bit about the importance of sidewalks on the side streets. I'm a little worried with every ward is different, but 114 has these beautiful trees that just kind of take over the sidewalk, take over the city. It's like the pipes and everything, and it becomes a little bit more of a burden. As much as it's a beautiful opportunity to have some natural shade for our homes and things like that, but in the last storm, we had 2 trees completely tip over, rip up the sidewalk, and I am concerned that storms like these are gonna continue happening. They're a little bit more unexpected than you ever anticipate. And we're gonna have more of these issues which require a lot more work on our sidewalks and perhaps not necessarily a whole lot to be able to support the side streets with. So I know that we're not looking necessarily to reprioritize, but this is kind of like a call to action on my behalf and for my neighbors to think a little bit more about how we strategize on our sidewalks. It's extremely important in our neighborhood. We do have a growing number of constituents that require mobility devices or mobility equipment, and it's becoming it's a point of worry for me, but also the neighbors. And I do want to emphasize how important it is that we kind of understand how quickly we can address some of the issues that we have on these side streets. The main streets in my ward look pretty decent. We were able to provide some newer opportunity for the new rehabilitation of some of these sidewalks, but the street ones, the side streets are begging for some support. So I'm asking if there's any way that we can find a way to prioritize some of this work. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's getting the phone calls. And it's just, I think we have to pay attention to it now and be a little bit more proactive as opposed to a reactive situation when we're getting the calls because the storm is already knocked over the truth.
Yeah, I know you made a sizable investment on Vanderwater Street, and that's,
did.
that's kind of one of those in between, right?
Yeah.
It's,
Or something.
it's a pedestrian thoroughfare, but it's also residential. I think that's a great investment, and a great opportunity. If you have any places that you would like to see work, submit it to us. If it fits within our, if it fits within our framework, we'd be happy to.
Sorry, oh, yes, there's an opportunity for us to kind of coordinate how, we can do that. I think it would be extremely helpful. I have a list of. But they're the smaller initiatives and not necessarily the longer trips, which I don't understand that those help substantially more because we can get. Somebody to do the work for an extended period of time that makes it, you can get a lot more out of that particular vendor that's doing work, but. These smaller one-offs or smaller projects, there's a lot more of those in my ward than, we have an opportunity to do it, so.
And I think our meeting on Monday is gonna talk about that a bit more in depth.
We're having a very special meeting. Really? Yeah. Excited.
Meeting on that, very specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have those contract plans to address them.
Yes, I'm worried.
Not to open up the whole thing, I know we're all excited about this budget. We do recognize those smaller one-offs are a challenge because you can't really get a contractor to do that. We have been really challenged with recruitment and training in our highway division for people who can do cement finishing. But we're expanding our efforts to recruit and also to set up some kind of training program in-house so that we can create sustainability in that. We're not there yet, but it's definitely a priority to working toward. We're also starting an initiative where we're kind of blitzing the city on a monthly basis, for those trip hazards, for those sidewalks that need to just be, made safe, so to make safe Saturdays. We're hoping that our first Make Safe Saturday is gonna be from this Saturday. Just kind of like knock down that list that everybody has of the little one-off trip hazard. So everything you're describing is very high on our priority list, and we have a team working on that we can try to solve that problem. But Sal will be here next Monday to answer all your other.
I'm very excited about this. You made my night, so thank you very much. It's so important to me. It's probably outside of other extracurriculars from different people in the neighborhood. Sidewalk is the biggest, the biggest conversation that I get to follow, so thank you.
Other than the other things.
Might bring up something that.
May I just ask the sidewalks and the roads, all the money that's been, already bonded for those projects, have they used all the bond money? Prior money that's been bonded for these, streets and sidewalks?
On the 2020 bond,
Yeah.
the majority of the sidewalk money, I think the sidewalk money has been fully spent, I believe.
There's still a little bit remaining, for sidewalks, so in the 2020. Oh, no, you're right, I'm sorry, you're right, there is no sidewalk made in 2020.
Right now, we're looking at our current project, which has a number of funding sources. From RIDOT reimbursable funds to 2020 bond to the 2024 bond, also some money that's left over in the 2017, so we're trying to spend all this stuff first to get that done, and then we based on the project we had when it started off fully ARPA, but then it got the ARPA funds get sort of moved around, do other sidewalks, and then some we supplemented with some CIP funds. So we're going to be using it for 2020, going to the 2024, and then we're in the next month or so we'll be putting together sort of proposal to show everyone to say this is how we want to continue the sidewalk or big. It was the methodology we can use, which is try to target the highest pedestrian areas and forward stuff, that'll be, with council and put another place that we're for trying to continue the plan and spend that more on that.
And very great, there's council great,
That's the same thing,
we have to raise our voices just.
Okay.
That's around the same way these bonds that are going back to 17, 19, whatever. Is there this particular amount of time we're supposed to have a time limit for these bonds? And if not, what is happening if in 17, we all know everything has the price of living and everything. So the things that it may have been allotted for at that time, it's no longer feasible to say there's allotted for now. So how are we making up for where are we getting these hits? I know that's two of the questions in one.
There are multiple questions there.
Yeah.
Respect for bond, the general rule is that most bonds are expected to be fully expended within the 3-year period following bond closing. That 3-year rule is predominantly so that you are exempted from arbitrage calculations. Theoretically, once you move past the 3-year timeline, funds are still remaining unspent. Then it depends on arbitrage calculation. Did you earn more interest while it was sitting idle and you're paying on that particular bond? That's a process that the finance department regularly goes through with the firm that does that for us outside the valuation firm and working with the bond house. It is unusual to have bond funds extend beyond 5 years. It's not a violation. It can be held. They can be spent. Again, as long as we stay within the rule of arbitrage spending. Many of the older bonds were allowed at very higher rates than the more recent ones. So any interest earned on idle funds would more than likely not exceed that interest. Doesn't cause a violation of arbitrage. In the more recent times, we did a bond last year. In last July, 135 million. The expectation then was based on a commitment by the administration working with council. We had identified in the last iteration of the CIP plan, there was over $353 million in spending that was expected to occur in the 5-year period. If we were to achieve that 353 million, which is much different today due to the rising cost of both the construction projects as well as new projects that have been added in the plans before. But looking at that last year, we did borrow 135 million. And if we were to stay within the parameters of our debt limit that we self-imposed because of managing our debt service, we probably would have left about 220 million then remaining of that plan a year ago, with expectation that we would take that down in 2 tranches, 2 years apart from each, at about 110 million per tranche. So as a deputy finance director and others have indicated that the next borrowing could occur in July of 2027, that was expected to occur. It's just a matter now, what dollar amount will that be? Will it be in the 110, 120 million range? Or would there be a more significant need? We would figure out another way to borrow that. But mindful of that, each time the finance department prepares the schedule with the aid and assistance of departments, while we look at 5 years, there's generally not a condition that would allow us to borrow any greater than the 2 years that are coming up next, just based on scope and affordability. But they're put there for a reason, to show the council, to show the public that these are the needs of the city. Here's the expectation, of course, over a planned series of 5 years, all subject to the funding and financing, including not just bonding, but other grants or needs of support. To answer the council questions, we were not intended on borrowing then until July 2027. And we would hope then that it's a reasonable range of borrow that's in the 100 million plus. I remind the council that each time we borrow, under today's current borrowing environment, if the rates are between 4% range, it's about 8 million for every 100 million that we borrow in terms of repayment payment for 20 year period. We've been staying within that range. Our debt service alignment, fortunately, in the past 5 years, and what we hope to project for the next few years, will remain stable at that into the budget. It's going to really give an opportunity for the finance team to manage those funds. Well, we were expecting not to borrow that until July.
Did you answer the question, Chief? It might not be for you, but if part of that question was, does that answer the question as to what happens if those original projects at a higher cost?
Like everything else in the world of projection, we would have to make a determination on whether or not. Once borrowed, if costs have risen. To the tune we could not complete it with a budget that is assigned, we have to figure some decision. Come back before the council and determine that will we take funds from a project that had a lower priority, lower respect to every project in the city. Because some other project took a priority. Then we have to figure out, well, once the funds are borrowed, that's the amount that we receive. And then, not only that, we will require council to any change that's considered material, council would have to approve that change of funds and the use. And we'd have to do a consult with bond council to make certain that we could in fact change the manner in which we were spending. Generally, if you spend money, a similar project, even though it wasn't the project that was published, bond council will approve that as a change to some of the council.
I think that answers.
Yes.
Okay, now,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Super done, sorry, my question, we were saying borrow again in July 27th. I'm saying calendar year 27th or July 27th?
Calendar 27,
Okay,
because last time we borrowed was July of 2024, so July, so we probably would be looking at it and borrowing again. I'm sorry.
calendar year, July, so actual July 2020.
We probably, earliest we can look at this again is calendar 2026, fiscal 26.
Okay. Thank you, sorry, I just wanted to be sure I got
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Counselor, Counselor Figures, oh, right, Counselor Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, DPW team, for being here. My only question, is regarding the sidewalk project map. Sorry to talk about sidewalks. It's the only thing I have to talk about right now. I will not be here on Monday, so I'll ask my sidewalk question now. A huge shout out to you guys for creating this map. It's extremely helpful. Sidewalk project map. Who created it? One of you guys?
It was one of the gentlemen, it's Jason,
Huge shout out.
that's the one that showed most of the council projects on.
Yeah, I mean, it shows all of them, the CIP, the ARPA, and then different, different ARPA ones. So huge shout out to Jason. My only question is, so it looks like the priority one was completed.
This is for the DPW project.
Yeah, it says DPW ARPA/CIP sidewalk improvement.
That's the DPW's current project that started off with kind of the ARPA funds and now is.
Right. So my question is, specific to my neighborhood, I guess, but kind of generally speaking, so the green, it seems like it's mostly completed. The blue sections are like priority 2. Is there no funds for
Yeah, so the way we kind of work, because the repairs can change from street to street, depending on this, we try to get an estimate of, based on past costs overall for the project, how much roughly does it on average cost per, linear foot of sidewalk or. And then we'll see how far we think we can get with the funds, and then we'll estimate that. And that's what we sort of hone in that priority 1 to try to say, I think we can get here. Once we get in and do the repairs and open up the sidewalk, sometimes it costs more, sometimes it costs less, depending on what material or lack of materials underneath the sidewalk, what might need to happen with trees. And that's where we'll spend the money we have, based on the actual repairs, and try with the hopes of getting to the priority 1 and even beyond the priority 2. But the priority 2 gives us a way to have estimates to be able to go further if funds allow, if the repairs were less than we thought we could move forward. If not, what we'll do is we get as far as we can, and then we'll, as we go into the next project under the CIP, we'll look at where we left off. It doesn't make sense to continue on that corridor to try to get where we wanted to get from the first project, or maybe even beyond. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess who would determine, whether you guys go back? Or
So that's what we're gonna look at as we go through now. Once we get our project finished, we're gonna look at every point we stop, where we wanted to get and what are the repair needs beyond that. Like with the current project, we might have wanted to go, from the street, from the whole length of the street, but we only thought we had funds to do 3/4 of the street. So for the next project, if, we'll look at the information we have on where we think the most pedestrians are, and what was there, bus stops, schools, things like that. And then we'll try to continue on in that high pedestrian area, so when we get into the next one, for instance, we hear more, wherever we leave off, we're gonna look at that and say, does it make sense to start there, continue on to a logical stopping place, and then where are the other areas we need into avoid and everything.
So you guys, DPW determines that.
We will put something together, make a proposal, and then share that with the administration and council. And, you know, we'll have a chance to put input on that to say, because a lot of times councils will know in certain areas, and yes, this is a high pedestrian area based on our data, and our metrics, but you might know, well, this area is equally as high, we can look at that, if it falls within our methodology and things, we might shift over and do one street that we want targeting.
Right, so what is the communication to like the contractors around this work? So what I'm getting to, just so you're aware, and I mentioned at the last meeting, is that, the work got done here. Neighbors and business owners were under the impression that the sidewalk was gonna be continued. So those neighbors and business owners are under like the blue part of it, so it's the priority two. So they were under the impression that, you know, their sidewalk was also gonna be replaced, but when they realized it stopped down the street, they started contacting me, saying what's going on. That's kind of when I reached out to kind of figure out, because I wasn't even aware. I might have seen this map at some point, but I was just like, I see people doing work. I'm like, oh, it's nice.
This may be one.
So I'm trying to figure out kind of how that communication happens. And I'm still not super clear on the whole like funding part of it, because it seems like there's still funding, but maybe not specific for like that section. Is that what you're saying?
This may be better served answering on Monday's meeting, but I can certainly try to give you a quick answer now.
So I'm not gonna be here on Monday, that's what I'm asking, yeah.
So for that, depending on, we have multiple different projects we work on for sidewalks.
Right.
Some of them might be CIP funded, some might be NIF, CDBG, ARPA, or a combination of all of them. And for each of those projects, there's a budget allocated for what we think we can go. So depending on which project's being worked on, if a neighbor or someone on that block or something sees that and they ask if theirs can be done, if it's not in the scope of the project and you don't, you know, have excess budget, then we're unable at that time to add that to the project. So that's where some of the neighbors may be contacting you or, what, you know, you got with funds. In some cases, a project might be say a NIF project or a CDBG project. And then the CIP is a separate project. So if there's not funding for those projects, it's not something we can just readily throw extra money at in the midst of a construction project.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. So I guess the question of there are specific budgets for each specific project that DPW is contracting on.
Yeah, so every project we have will have, you know, if it's a CIP project, we'll have an overall budget, but generally that gets sort of spread throughout every ward, throughout the city. And that's sort of the budget for that ward. And then we'll try to work as far as we can get. So depending on what the repair needs are on that corridor or what we can get, if something, say we were identified through a neighbor or through a butter, that there's a repair need here, it's within the area of that project, we might make the decision, say, we can accommodate that, but we have to pull a repair off at the end of the project. Where some of the projects are there's specific locations and things that we're trying to accomplish and get done. And then we don't have the ability to pull from the end of the project because that pulls you know, a location that we were asked to get done off of it. So it gets a little difficult, especially in areas where it's not a full corridor project to try to accommodate the needs of everyone. Yeah. Even though there may be budgets in up to the CIP budget, you know, there may be budget unspent, but that's allocated for a different purpose, for the sidewalk repair purpose.
Right, that makes sense. So just to end, I guess, on this topic, where can counselors like see how much is allocated for each specific project?
You can contact me and I can try to get you in some of, there's.
Like, is that
multiple-
not like, is that not out there somewhere, like?
Well, we have the CIP line item, so there's this much money for the CIP, you know, generally.
So you said there's like a sidewalk like overview budget, and then there is like specific budgets for like each project, like where could we see that information?
Well, for the CIP, you can see it through the line items here, that's how much of the CIP project is generally broken down amongst every ward. It's equitable between. every
Right,
ward.
we could provide that.
We can provide it to you.
Yeah, it's not publicly available. That lives in spreadsheets on our drives.
Okay. And then I guess the last question on that is, would the contractor that's like working on that know, of like what might be added to it, or like, or before they start the work, they know exactly what they're doing? I guess like when would it be known to them, if at all, that they might be continuing on that same street, or they're not, they're only gonna do that specific work?
Quote, say a CIP funded project, where it's a corridor project, we're trying to get from this point on the road, we'll generally let them know at the beginning of the project, we think we can get to here, but we're trying to get to here. And they're at that location moving forward, so they've mobilized, they're ready to work, and as we progress, then we work with them to say, we'd like to go further. In certain cases, depending on schedule, if they're trying to meet a schedule for us and get to the next ward, they may not have the time to stay there to continue on, they may have to go to the next ward. When it's more, individual addresses and things, they have to keep moving, if they're mobilized in one spot, it's hard for them to go back. If it's a long corridor project, you know, they might be able to. We have a little bit, they have a better understanding of, yeah, we might be moving, you know, further down the road.
If I could just add, Brian, one of the variables that we face everywhere we do sidewalks are trees. And we don't know the root situation until we lift up those sidewalk panels and say, we're gonna spend an hour trimming tree roots, we're gonna spend a day trimming tree roots. Or you know what, there's too many tree roots, this tree looks in poor health. We've gotta take it down. That's the difference between a couple $100 and a couple $1,000. And as that aggregates up down the corridor, all of a sudden, we could spend $50,000 in tree treatment, and now that's taken away from priority one, or saying, you know what, priority two is not even an option. I think that's one of the biggest headaches that we have is, we can see a tree in poor health and say, Mr. Forrester, is this something we should plan to take down or not? We can budget for the ones that we know we can take down. It's the unknowns, which are very frequent in underground construction, that we can't budget for. I mean, we have a contingency in there, but that's why we have those priority twos and priority threes. So you know what? No surprises, we can continue down the line and proceed to priority two.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, absolutely. You said we right into the part of it, I was gonna ask, but I actually forgot to ask it in my question. Or my time, so thank you. My question is around actually the conversation before us for DPW. When that happens, that situation that you just said happens, what's the follow? If the forester, let's say that you say this tree looks like it's in poor health, if the forester is actually like, well, hang on a second, I don't necessarily agree. Who then makes the determination? How does that kind of work? What does that cause the sidewalk project to pause? Like, I feel like there might be some unknowns here. And in a couple of instances, I can certainly see where that might be a hindrance to continue moving forward with a particular project.
Yeah, neither Brian or I are arborists. We're using our untrained eye to see, you know what, that doesn't look great, right? Trees should have a canopy by this time of year. If it doesn't, maybe that's something we refer to the forester for. The forester's opinion is typically the one that rules. And if you're saying a tree stays, and we're generally trying to work around that. If we come upon a root issue where, depending on the forester or his staff to come out and say, here's the direction we need to take, let's implement. And yeah, there are delays. They're very busy. I know they're still cleaning up from storms. And that's, right, we're drawing them in a different direction from their core goal of maintaining trees. So it's an issue. I think we work very well together and a very cooperative relationship. I've spoken for quite some time that tree replacement, not just tree removal, but are we approaching end of life here? Should we consider removing and replanting? I think that's a policy shift that we should be looking at. Happy to discuss it. That's all.
On Monday.
On Monday.
Is there any other question? Yes, Councilor Pichardo.
Thank you. I just have a clarification. In terms of the sidewalk projects over Suffolk County, how is that decided? Within the wards or within the city? How is that decided? What's the needs and data and so forth?
Yeah, it's based on available data where we're trying to theorize where the most pedestrians are using sidewalk facilities and trying to make improvements there for the biggest benefit. It doesn't make sense to replace sidewalks on a dead end where maybe one person's using it on a daily basis as a dog walker. We've seen a lot of improvements on Broad Street and Elmwood Ave, where we know we have a high pedestrian usage. And our sidewalk improvements can benefit the most amount of people.
So it's based on studies that you conduct.
Yeah, it's based on available data that we've put together to try and formulate a plan and an approach for sidewalk.
And what is the difference between the citywide traffic calming versus citywide traffic calming study implementation?
Yeah, I think that was just a matter of, when that line item it's initiated, different bonds, it's just how we call it, it's one of the same, it's basically money for implementing traffic calming policy, as I said. The policy both has temporary measures, there's rubber speed bumps and permanent measures, which could be permanent speed bumps for the other options, so it's one of the same.
Thank you. And then lastly, you mentioned in terms of the overtime of communication, one is communicating with contractors or subcontractors or parties involved. Is that include also overtime communicating with city council people or just in?
Yeah, there are some items in there for staff, or with, in terms of traffic engineering, it's a number of things, it's. Traffic studies, it's managing some of the projects, the traffic calming projects or traffic signal improvement projects or traffic signal operation studies. It's just trying to help manage those and actually do some studies to determine which traffic calming requests get approved, and some of the traffic engineers goes into implementing that study. Whether it's approved in temporary measures to put in place, there's time needed for that, and it's just time that it's beyond what they can do in some of their regular 35-hour.
And are those communicated to us in terms of where those studies are even conducted? They city council members are waiting up there.
So, yeah, I mean, there's probably initially. We basically just traffic calming requests, baseline requests. And initially did study and this approved, not approved, this communication. We've utilized this past year. Next step is if it's approved, it goes through temporary measures. And at the end of that several month period, the temporary measures put in. There's a public meeting, and we work very closely with the council this past week to organize public meetings, to see if there's communities in favor of permanent measures, and so we look forward. We're very successful, and City Council is very much involved and very helpful in getting those meetings accomplished.
Okay, I'm gonna say thank you very much to the BTW team. And thank you so much for coming and seeing some of this, coming to see us again. Appreciate it. Thank you.
See you.
Okay. Everything you do. Okay. Great, I think next to a public property, since you guys have been very patient, and I don't think we have anyone complaining. Except 14. Or whoever. Thank you very much. Yeah. Got the Hello. Hello.
Oh, you might be.
My dear. Stop.
Unless you're the.
That would be, that's right. That's not even big stuff. All right. Okay. She makes the kids. We're just in there and shoveling her. Well, Director, how do you want to handle this? Do you want to go through every project or? Like, so, yeah.
I was looking at went down the project list.
And so we should go down the property.
See your project management, give a brief description at that point, and then any questions after that, I can answer.
We're doing planning.
Yeah, we are doing public property. Okay, that's I guess we're gonna say that.
All right.
Is everybody ready? For that, so ready, okay.
Okay, so we'll kick it off right at the top, Academy Ave building improvements. This is our police training as well as our public property garage. You can see in years fiscal year 27 and 28, we've got some money allocated, and these would be for structural repairs, ceilings, HVAC improvements, as well as restrooms and flooring improvements. Again, that's unfunded in out years. The next line is also at Academy Ave, and this is for an imminent roof replacement project that's critical, that is already funded for the $2.468 million line item. Next down the list is animal control, again in fiscal years 27 and 28. And this would be money for basically total building renovations to finishes, as well as all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection and fire alarm systems in the building. Basically, whole upgrades.
So that's just to.
Correct, yep. The next line item is the substitute or red line, which is the Apples Ave arch, taking the place of the previous Camp Cronin fund. Next down the list, we have the City Hall elevator, which you can see out there has kicked off. So that is currently funded for the 1.1 million figure there. Next is City Hall HVAC, and this is down the road, fiscal year 29. It would be a whole building HVAC upgrade to both electrify for the decarbonization ordinance and to attempt to centralize into one unified conditioning system and heating. Next is City Hall interior repairs, somewhat related to the City Hall roof and envelope projects on the following lines. Starting in fiscal year 28. Initially, these repairs following the roof phase 1 project would address those areas most significantly damaged by water infiltration, and then continue to bring the building up to speed. City Hall roof phase 1 is currently funded for both the fiscal year 26 and 27 allocations. Phase 1 design is currently in progress, with bidding likely to come for general contractors towards the end of this year, early next calendar year. And that phase 1 covers both the dome as well as some roof areas facing Kennedy Plaza, as well as the historical slate shingle and copper detail aspects of the roof. Phase 2, starting year 28, fiscal year 28 through fiscal year 30, would cover the remainder of the roof and gutter systems, as well as the rest of the building exterior moving down. That includes all windows, all masonry repairs, which are significant, and doors. And those numbers for both of these City Hall roof phases come from a feasibility study that was performed earlier this year. So those are very probable estimated costs to the tune of the 52 million that you see there at the end. Next on the list, we have citywide decorative lighting replacement or repairs. So these are the street decorative lights as opposed to the standard Cobra lights. Currently funded for 1.5 million. Each of those poles for a full replacement is about $10,000. So you're looking at about 150 poles able to be replaced in fiscal year 26. And then you can do the math down the line, but that is very probably close to the number that we have down currently. Next down the list is citywide pool remediation. As you can see, $1 million allocated currently in fiscal year 26, and then $1 million projected in each out year. These would cover full resurfacing of the pools, which hasn't happened in some time, and each one of those is leaking currently. So full resurfacing as well as needed pump filter infrastructure improvements for those pools. Then we have the communications building for telecom. We currently are left with about 121,000 of previous allocations for roof and some finish repairs. But in the next 2 fiscal years, we hope to accomplish HVAC improvements, roof repairs / full replacement, more finishes, repairs, generator work on the windows, and then work on site security and gates. The Dexter Street Garage is where our fleet maintenance is performed for police and fire and public property vehicles. We're currently spending down 192,000 towards some paving and bathroom projects that occurred this year. And then we have 1.5 and 500,000 in fiscal years 27 and 28 respectively for further drainage, concrete apron work, oil water separators, roof repairs, and window replacements. Next on the list is Elmwood Community Center. We just have about $19,000 there left over from what we refer to as phase 1 improvements to the building. Those we're working on closing out some accounts there, and I'm working with finance to make sure we close out those POs and then figure out with council and recreation how to spend the remainder that's there. Next down the list is fire station general repairs and renovations. This is a big one. Similarly to the City Hall roof project, we've performed a feasibility study across all of the fire stations in the city, and there are significant needs for repairs and improvements. The current allocation of 4 million remaining in fiscal year 26 will be put towards what we see as some of the most critical repairs, and those are to HVAC and roof improvements at North Main and Branch Ave fire stations. And the HVAC is not only heating and cooling, but also critical circulation to make sure that our firefighters are breathing in clean air inside the stations when they bring back those hazardous gear. The next line is flood and climate mitigation, and similar to the next handful that we'll talk about, these are all building budgets for public property to be able to react to, in this case, flood and climate events that affect our buildings constantly, and as we can see, are happening more and more often. The next 4 lines, general improvements to facilities for electrical, envelope and interiors, mechanical and plumbing, again, are meant to build budgets and public property to react to emergent needs beyond just our everyday sprinkler inspection on a blanket contract. This is for when they see a fire alarm panel is broken, needs replacement. So a little bit larger line items, or say a rooftop AC unit needs replaced. That would be covered under these budgets, as opposed to some of our, more holistic whole building HVAC projects, which have their own lines. These are for those smaller one-offs. The next hazard mitigation, this is for hazardous materials again, that emerge really as part of other projects or that become damaged, such as asbestos that needs immediate abatement, or to help other projects where maybe they weren't budgeted for those hazardous material abatements. We can tap into this line to take care of that. Next is the new DPW complex, which is our biggest current investment. You can see fiscal years 26 and 27 are currently funded to the tune of 57 million thereabouts. That covers the construction of a new garage, which will house 9 maintenance bays for public works for their fleet maintenance, as well as plenty of storage areas in that building, and then a second floor for staff and crew, offices, locker rooms, sit-down areas. We have completed design. We have awarded a construction manager contract on that project, and we're looking forward to starting construction in September. They're currently bidding out all of their subcontractor trades, the electricians, the masons, etc. You can see way down the line, fiscal year 30, there's another hefty sum for 44.8 million. The idea there is that would be a future potential phase 2 investment. Because of the current budget, we're having to leave in place the existing garage on 20 Ernest that stands today, which has its own host of significant problems. In the interim, that will be used for, continue to be used for truck storage, as well as storage for some other materials, but all of the personnel will be moved out of that building as part of the current project. And so if we were to get this investment in fiscal year 30, we would look to demolish that building and replace it with a new state-of-the-art complex for their needs. Next line is similar to Public Works. We have an OPM CM services line. This funds the time for our project managers spent on CIP projects, as well as any outside project management consultants we should need to tap into just due to manpower needs. Next one is Pleasant View Elementary School ADA Playground. This is a project that is supplementing Learning Inside Out grant, as well as CDBG dollars to construct an accessible playground. This is one that, if I'm not mistaken, couldn't be funded out of the revolving fund.
Correct.
Or reimbursed by the Department of Education. Next, you see the PPSD capital revolving fund investment, $5 million, both in fiscal year 27 and 29. And then we get to the public safety complex. So we have a current allocation, current funding of $4 million fiscal year 26. That's going towards an expense or a total roof replacement, as well as HVAC replacement project that's currently looking to construct in the fall into the spring of next year, depending on timing. As part of that project, or at the conclusion of that project, we'll also use those dollars to supplement solar panel installation on the building. And the out years unfunded, we're looking at concrete repairs, window replacements, some HVAC units within the building, kind of down from the roof can be replaces, as well as multiple finishes. And then across the street, the next line is the public safety garage, currently funded 1.2 million in fiscal year 26 for structural repairs. In the out years, we are planning for further structural repairs that emerge, as well as repairs to the antenna system on top of that roof. The next line is real estate acquisition, $20 million. This is proposed to meet needs for various city staffing, primarily so archives, which is in need of space. Next, we have Recreation Center general repairs. The allocation that's currently funded in fiscal year 26, 1.8 million, goes to an HVAC electrification project and for the decarbonization ordinance, replacing all the gas systems fully electric in 5 of our rec centers. That's currently under construction and should be completed by the end of this calendar year. hopefully before the heating season. In the out years, from fiscal year 27 and beyond, this covers general improvements, mostly roofs, accessibility, security improvements, as well as some changes in room use. You know, we see less need for locker rooms, more need for multi-purpose rooms on a rec center by rec center basis, and for council input. The next line is rec center HVAC electrification. So this would really follow that current HVAC project that I discussed, and would complete it at all the remaining rec centers. A few of those are shared spaces with schools, so we would work with PPSD to determine the best way to capitalize on that. Both of these, the current and the future HVAC projects, look to supplement federal congressional earmarks. The current one is already approved, the future one is to be determined. Next line is recreational improvements, and these are primarily for outdoor recreation at our schools and rec centers. Tennis courts that are in need of repair, new requests for conversion to pickleball courts and the like, improvements and repairs to basketball courts. And then finally, we have supplementary lighting improvements. This follows the PVD illumination plan.
I'm sorry, the lighting improvements are where?
That's the PVD illumination plan. I'm sure you do.
Yes. I'm voting block.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you. That was very complete. It's very impressive. We just have it all in your head. So, high fives. I have a few questions. So the first is, so the crossing out the camp permit, just to like ask maybe one question, is this signaling that we plan to sell?
Not necessarily. We're at an impasse right now until we determine the future use of Camp Cronin. So we can allocate dollars in the future to that project, but we're just saying today we have these other needs which are ready to be.
I wasn't advocating for the plan.
Sure.
And then, yes, very good. For the city hall roof repairs, will that be helping, will that help, like the parts of it that are being prioritized for the severe and second help for these plans?
Correct. Yeah, particularly in the dome where a lot of materials are stored currently, but also in their offices.
It's not starting because it seems to be quite delayed.
It's been in design. Design is moving through, going through historical society approvals as well. A plan, I believe, is to bid that out in the fall for construction.
So constructions.
Probably later in the year, early next year, calendar year.
There's a lot of design involved because of the historical nature, especially the parts of copper and stuff. Copper needs to be remolded in certain areas. So they've done a lot of research in order to put the plan together. So that there's already up to today quite a bit of work going on.
And a lot of details, you know, the way the building was originally constructed, we now know are not right. And so we're trying to rectify that while also keeping historical, you know, significance, keeping the exterior the same. Yeah, it's quite a task.
We found flaws with the original design, which created issues that we are trying to remedy with this new plan.
Okay, it's not, I know it's an urgent need, we're constantly reminding them. So awfully for Galen, recently from the day, I have to increase the bags, so it does. We feel very, we're feeling the urgency.
Absolutely.
We don't want this project to be, you know, postponed for any reason. So, yeah, we can do it.
For the decorative light one, are those for existing decorative lights that need to be replaced, or are these new decorative lights that said that it's on?
Correct. I think those are all replacement and repairs. Whereas things like supplemental lighting improvements would cover new designs. Yeah.
We probably do some, we have that supplemental lights, and then even if so, is it possible to send it, I've seen it, but
Okay, that needs to be something, and I'm sorry, can I take you back on that for a minute? I just wanna make sure none of those are benefit streetlights, you're still in good shape, is that correct?
No, yeah, the benefit streetlights which were replaced, I believe, last year are not included in that list.
They're not, I'm sorry, they're not.
Not included, right, there's some
Where-
good shape.
I'm just.
I would have to get back to you, yeah.
Where are the?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there, it's all.
So these are square, it's pretty.
Yeah, it's all over.
Roseville, Westminster, it's both the same.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, no. For the fire station repairs, this, I have some questions on that, but, that I think a few years ago, we were in Chief Silva, that the fire station building rooms, bathrooms, is that, have those been fixed already, and not, is that where this allocation?
Those were already completed. I believe those were spent down on the current allocation. So what you see is what's left after that spent. That project is complete.
So like all of the fire stations now have.
Correct.
As of, just a couple months ago.
Okay. And then can you talk about some of the other repairs for the fire stations, like were they? Like how dire is it? Like one, this is not a, we shouldn't invest in fire stations, I just want to get sense of what's going on.
Yeah, so the HVAC and the roofs are the most dire. And again, at North Main and Branch, where we're currently focusing with this first approach, those are what we see as the most critical. There was a full feasibility study with prioritization
Oh.
suggestions. So we'd be happy to share that full list, but it includes, to me, the HVAC is kind of number one, like I mentioned, with the circulation, the ventilation. But it also includes, electrical that's not up to code. Ironically, fire alarms are often not up to code in these buildings and fire stations. Right.
A lot of shipping paint all over the place. But circulation is definitely a big one. The firefighters come back from calls covered in carcinogens. So they do have extractors, which is a term for like washing machines for these items, but we need to, where the plan is to be able to circulate that air in a positive, so that it's taking it out, instead of keeping it inside the building.
And it's the maintenance of the buildings themselves. I mean, remember, we actually marked 20 years of neglect and so it's. Buildings need help.
No, thank you. I wasn't saying we shouldn't expect.
Sure. Just to,
Okay.
just to build up on that question, so, is like the 10 million placeholder, is that like a pretty rough estimate, or is that like, that's like show like there's a dire need and like we need to make that commitment now?
So that's based on the total 44 million,
Okay.
that if you look at the end of the line, we've kind of tried to make it easier to digest or easier to bond year after year with that 10 million. But, if we had all the money tomorrow or next year, we could certainly capitalize on that. We utilize, outside project managers probably to help our team accomplish that, but yeah, and that's not to say 44 million are all top criticality. We feel that 10 million per year is approachable, will meet our needs. But that's just the way we chose to represent it here. Thank you. So.
Then two other questions. One is the money for real estate acquisition. Can you talk a little bit more about it? What is that? You said car packs, but like what else? And then I know that we have some properties since we discussed this during the regular, like the regular budget conversation, that we have some properties that maybe we can get off of that aren't being used, like one of those. Drive each other.
Yeah, well, we're in a situation right where we're growing city hall, we need to put in one of the buildings, so that's what we're looking into right now, as far as how to alleviate that problem. We want to move certain divisions out, certain divisions together to make it easier, we can put DPW, TIS, to OBS, it's a one-stop shop. So just looking into ways to do that.
How did you explain the 20 million? Is there a building or two that you're surprised on, or like, what's that? So if it's like this year, is it 4.4? Is it 4.4? Yes, please.
Yes.
So I guess just to confirm, get clarity on that, so the city right now is exploring the potential of purchasing 444 Westminster?
That's correct.
Just for my own. 11 cents. I don't know if I missed that. You missed it.
And then my last is more just, and Billy said about the record to should, so I just want to say that.
Yeah.
Okay, who next? I can go.
My question is.
Sorry, I feel like.
Maybe you answer the questions.
So how did you decide, for the rec center, general repairs, you said, that is for 5 rec centers, how was that decided?
Right, so that's only the current HVAC project is for 5 of our recreation centers. That was identified based on the state of the current HVAC systems in those rec centers. Basically, places where we had problems with heating, or we had to repeat maintenance calls for issues like that. As part of these projects, they will add conditioning, cooling in the gyms where previously there's been none, so that's just a net positive. But for the out years where we talked about more general improvements, those would cover all rec centers.
I'm sorry, did you say the outdoor improvements cover all rec centers?
Sorry, the out years, as in everything after fiscal year 27 in that recreation center general repairs line. It's a little funny the way it's classified, but again, we're going off of the way things were previously labeled, we've added this HVAC electrification line now to be more clear in the future years.
Okay, and then recreational improvements, where, that's outdoor, where?
That would cover school, playgrounds, recreation centers that aren't parks. Just all, yeah. Anywhere it needs riders. We're seeing a lot of requests for these repairs, but it's everywhere.
Okay. And then I was interested in your flood and climate mitigation line, because you said it's the money is being used to react to flooding events.
Correct.
Can you tell me, a little bit about that?
Sure. Anywhere we have an unexpected flood or climate event that impacts, and we see, water infiltration in the building, where we didn't already have a planned project or planned improvement. We have to go in with generally emergency repairs.
So if we have a storm that comes through, major storm, and let's say it tears a piece of the roof off. All of a sudden now it's raining inside the building. There's a whole lot of things that's gonna happen from that. And a lot of it goes to companies like yeah, like a CertPro kind of company that's gonna come in and mitigate all the water, dry up the place so we're not creating habitat for mold, things of that nature. Because we're finding that our buildings are old and, we tend to have some issues here and there, but putting money aside for these items was pretty important.
Thank you. And then the supplementary lighting improvements, again, that's for illumination of Providence staff now.
Yes. That's, planning is, has a project right now for different lighting throughout the city itself. Kennedy Plaza, around City Hall, Westminster Street. It's just it's interactive lighting. It's a pretty good system that we're working on right now. They're actually doing it, but we're funding.
Okay, so when you say interactive, like art installation or?
It's typical line installation for the street lights themselves. If you're walking down the sidewalk, the lights are actually falling down the sidewalk in certain areas, different colors, depending on holidays. We're able to control it via the internet.
Okay. Great. Okay, anyone else? Yes, Councilor Stir.
Thank you. Thank you. Some of them have been answered already, but I'm gonna go down the list. Just a clarification. On the Camp Cronin line was taken out. What was that originally for and why was that taken out?
The previous 750,000 was to be used to complete renovations to the camp. So previously, we spent ARPA and I believe CIP dollars to replace the roofs, the siding, the windows and doors of the two existing buildings on the site. So that's complete and done. This money would have gone towards bringing the utilities back to those buildings, finishing the interiors and doing the full mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection for the two existing buildings, as well as whole site, paving, creating parking drives, and site security.
So you're saying is that there's no electricity now or up to code at Cap Cronin?
Correct. They're not usable in the current state, but again, we can't start that project until we know what's gonna happen with it. Just per the town of Narragansett zoning ordinance, they have to know what the use is.
You need a, yeah, use.
Is there a plan for that?
That's all currently in the works and above my head personally.
So we actually have a matter before finance.
I'm sorry?
We have a matter before finance that was introduced by.
Oscar Vargas. Yes.
Oscar Vargas on the future of Infront.
Right, and that's why I asked, I mean, it's before, but what's the, the condition, what's the rationale of not including it there and so forth? Some of us may be in agreement of whether selling it or not, or just, leaving it in the shell, that's why, and, it's in finance, it's gonna be heard in finance, is that what you said? No. Thank you. The, on the city hall interior repairs, I know you just referenced the, archives and the roofs and all that. Is that including, the fifth, is it the fifth floor where, records of deeds and the bathrooms are gonna be? Are the bathroom included in those things on every level? Well, at least,
So bathrooms are currently on a project. I don't know if that's actually CIP dollars.
Yes.
We currently have a project that's going to address most, if not all, of the bathrooms, but these interior CIP dollars would cover deeds. It would cover all, everything.
everything that's damaged, okay. On the Emo Community Center. The 18,000, that's money and on that line, 2026, this is money that it's available now, correct?
Correct.
On the 27 is projected, meaning that we have it.
So no money for Elmwood in the rest of CIP. There is a project there that's ongoing with CPF, Capital Project Fund grant dollars.
That's why it doesn't show up here.
Right, that's what it is.
And these 1877.95 is just what is that in?
So like I said, I need to go through the exercise with finance to make sure all our existing contracts are closed on that, just the small things that are remaining, and then it's free to use.
Okay. On the new DPW complex. So the total build out of that DPW complex is gonna come out to about estimated about $57 million.
That's correct. That also includes the acquisition of the property that's just above the hill. Correct. What we now call the upper campus, which DPW just moved into earlier this month. It includes, design costs, some soft costs related to the project, as well as the construction manager cost of construction.
So, and then on the outgoing years, in 2030, when we get more bonding, you're saying that you're gonna need another 44 million because the current structure is going to be remaining and then demolish and then build that portion of out?
Correct, yeah, so as it stands with the current project, current phase, there is that existing garage which will stay standing. And some money from the current budget will go to immediate repairs to that building, such as the roof and possibly ventilation, to make it last another 5 years to get a potential phase 2. But that in fiscal year 30 is kind of our wish list, phase 2.
proposed project. And on the Pleasant View Elementary 88 playground, is that the only school that is not meeting? The ADA, are there any other schools or has a study been conducted?
No, it's not the only other school.
That school is a service that I have a number of kids with mobility issues and in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
So other schools have ADA playgrounds, but that one has the highest degree of fee based on kids that are served in special school.
Compared to all the other schools? So are there any other schools that we should be trying to address,
Those will
that
be
same
addressed
concern?
as part of the school bonds of the capital improvement. This is like an old school project. When they bonded for that project, they didn't include the playground. Going forward, we include the outside space when we're doing new schools. So those schools are getting new playgrounds. They built the new Pleasant View and didn't attach any outdoor space, so we have to remedy that. So,
Okay, good, thank you. Again, it was around the acquisition, real estate acquisition. So are we also projecting that we're moving archives over there to 444? Or are we looking to see other buildings, or this is it?
So, to be clear, the decision to potentially purchase 444 Westminster will come back to the council and you all are back in September.
Yeah.
If we're able to do that, we will do a reorganization of that building and this building, and archives will come for consideration. So there's no decision about where it will go. We will either put them in better space in one of these two buildings, or we will go find another building for them, depending on what shakes out from all of them. So all of that is very much still in the air. This is a placeholder, so it's in the plan. But if the council doesn't approve it to move forward, then this will just be, this isn't funded yet, it'll remain unfunded.
And then,
Let me ask a follow-up question, I'm sorry.
Wait, you said it's not funded?
It requires an additional bond.
Oh, we don't have money in. that's
And
right.
the council would have to approve.
so,
And when we come back to you in September, we'll show you the financials of that lease, why we're recommending a potential acquisition, and we'll be able to get into all those details.
So just to confirm, I thought everything in FY 2026 was funded already.
That's the only thing that's not. funded.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We just put it in there because we didn't want to like introduce this plan and then come back in September and have a new ad without having. I'm gonna recognize the brand.
Do you certain?
Yes, probably.
I do. Brendan Welch, policy analyst, city council. Thanks, Chairman, just to provide very brief context on this. CO Hawkins is right when we're giving these terms, but broadly for those who didn't know the exact structure. Currently, the city is leasing 444 from Palin Properties with escalating rent payments over the course of the 25-year lease. Lease was signed in 2011. We're in 2025, we're paying well over $1 million annually to Palin Properties, and those payments will continue to increase until the end of the lease in 2036. So those rent expenses were added in various line items under the operating budget. However, to reduce that sort of long-term operating expense for a space that we already occupy, that's where that is purchased. The replacement of that lease with a purchase building.
Thank you. And as it relates to archives, if you've been in that building, you'll see that it's poorly organized. Like, we don't have the opportunity to do much to it because it's not our building. And so if we have the opportunity to purchase it, we could also reorganize the building, which would make space for other departments and make it way more efficient than it is now. And so that would be part of what we contemplate next year, right?
Do a whole space planning process for the building.
thank you,
Absolutely.
thank you. Thank you for asking that. That's where I was going. So just to be clear, the lease of the 444 ends in 2026? 36, okay, just thought I heard that. You gave me a year. All right, and that's about it for now. Yeah, thank you.
So with that, I think we move to your final plan. And thank you very much. Thank you for the thoroughness and about.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so Fox is not here?
Yeah, so Parks was the heard last. The previous day. And.
Okay. I thought they were-
Also the charter, I don't know if you can see, email. Which came from our policy stands and, the talks in detail.
Yes. Okay, we see that.
It's about their flex rate, be available, if we have the website, we're on that, if we're on exclusive,
Yep.
to let us know, but also, instant. We was able to also put onto that chart, if you look, it's divided into words and there are various words, and also is put notes right at the end. We had a lot of questions whether head funds were used, we have other funds were used on some of those projects, and it's really helpful.
Yes, it was, and I do have some follow-up, that's why I was also wanted to be here, I thought they were gonna be here, but
Yeah,
we'll figure that out.
Started that process first, it's usually just terrible, but if there's anything.
Yeah.
I can focus on it.
We'll do
Right. For the release, we on the record plans.
He's good.
Okay, so now we're on to, land.
Yeah, I will walk quickly through their Monday, and I will admit I am not a subject matter expert in these lines, but I have talked to them quite a few times, so I will do my best to make it through, and I do have key pockets to back me up where I may be missing some information. The first line item in this CIP plan is $435,000 for Cathedral Square. This is for the planning department to analyze the needs of Cathedral Square, and perform a full analysis of what that area needs is. It was previously approved in the 2020 bond, and that is the remaining allocation, so they have committed to doing that analysis in fiscal year 2026. And then the funding for the balance of the work associated with that study will come out of the public infrastructure improvements line, which is the line that we added the additional $100,000 to from Camp.
They're also gonna be doing the study includes what we're calling make safe, if you haven't been up there lately, it's really in rough shape. So they're gonna do some immediate interventions to just try to deal with trip hazards and make the space safe, while we plan the future of that.
City Walk is a project that was approved in the fiscal year 2020 bonds. It is expected that that project will be completed in fiscal year 2026, and the remaining balance is $807,823. The $1.5 million allocation for a funding match for state DEM grants has not yet been tied to a specific grant award. However, those grants are typically issued in the fall, and so the planning department would like to retain this allocation, which was already approved in the 2024 CIP, so that they can point to and identify funding that is available should they apply for any sort of earmarks or federal grants through state DEM, which sometimes are passed through from that. The Green and Complete Streets match is exactly that, is the match for the existing Green and Complete Streets grant. Off-road shared use of paths and trails is also completing this year. Is doing exactly that, is upgrading some paths and trails that are off-road. They are going to be finishing that work in fiscal year 2026. And that again is an allocation remaining from the fiscal year 2021. So I think, those of you who were last week or maybe recall me saying one of the guidance I had provided departments was to please spend your 2020 money. So the planning department has committed that they will be really prioritizing these projects in fiscal year 2026 so that we can comply with the bond regulations on drawing down expenses. The OPM and CM services are OPM services for the various projects they're using, and I know they're using, right now that's helping support the, I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but the Pawtucket Riverwalk project, so they're supporting that right now. They're also helping with some of the green and complete streets work. And so that's what that allocation is for, and the department has kind of projected out how that will remain. The bulk of it is in fiscal year 2026, as is their funding, so that's kind of where that has aligned up. Public infrastructure improvements is funds to be available to support the Cathedral Square plan. Right now, it's estimated about $1.9 million, but we will need to true this number up once we finalize that plan in fiscal year 2026. Upper South Providence and Trinity Square project is is repairs to the roadway and pedestrian access for those areas of the city. That $6.6 million is the remaining allocation from the fiscal year 2021. So again, really prioritizing pushing spending those old bond dollars as quick as we can. The USDOT raise match is a match for the existing grants. There's approximately $1 million remaining from the original CIP allocation, which happened in fiscal year 2020 as well. I'm sorry, no, the raise match is from the 2024 bond. And so you can see that they're anticipating the bulk of work happening in fiscal year 2026 and completing in fiscal year 2027. Safe Streets for All grant is exactly that. So this is the allocation that was approved in the 2024 CIP, and we're just carrying the balance forward through fiscal year 2028 when that project is expected to complete. And then the Pawtucket Greenway and Pawtucket Riverwalk project, again, is the same project that we've been discussed in this committee several times, usually when the contracts come through. But that's just a continuation and completion of that.
May I just ask you about Trinity Square, because this is a area of concern when it comes to repairs. What is, can you talk about this project? I mean, has it been ongoing? What is the 6.6 million?
This is what Bryant mentioned. This is like from before this administration. It was a plan to do comprehensive street and sidewalk work in Trinity Square. Looking at Kyle, who can probably keep me honest, 'cause he's probably been around for all of this. That this has been pending because there's so much utility work to be done. Hasn't started because we're waiting for water and electric and gas to get in and out.
And how long are we going to wait? What is the delay getting them in, the utilities?
Utilities have to have funding and readiness to do the work.
So we have funding for this project, but we can't spend it till they come and they can't do it because they don't have funding.
They're putting together the funding for it. They're, you know, they've assured us they're gonna do it. It's an example of where I think the administration set a priority without ensuring that the utility was going to be able to do their work also. And so now the utilities had to put together the funding to be able to do the work because the utilities do need to be replaced there. But because we didn't ask first, they are catching up to us so that they can do it.
So, okay, so but we put it in 2026, so we're thinking something's gonna make that happen.
I think it will depend.
Is there any coordination you can do? I guess this isn't our cost, so you were saying the utilities have to pay for their portion of this, so it's not like we can pay. Buying any projects or policy or anything like that.
We can also cover this. I think Brian has been living this night. Brian and Craig have been living this nightmare for a long time also, and so they'll be able to give you further commentary and then come back on with it.
Great, councilors. Yes, that's a really good question.
Just a quick question, just to confirm, Crystal, what you said, the public infrastructure improvements is entirely implementing the cathedrals for the pen?
Not entirely. At this point in time, they're unsure of what the actual need will be. There was some remaining funding from the Pawtucket River Greenwalk that wasn't going to be needed for the grant match, and so we thought it would be best to put this in the public infrastructure improvement line, so funding would be available for the Cathedral Square project once we know the total is.
If there's more money, we'll be able to work with the council to determine where that goes.
Okay, so this is overestimated.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that project is good. There's like sinkholes now in the square because the sewers are failing, like, that's an example of where everyone has just like made it somebody else's problem for decades, and we really have to do something out there, so, I don't think there will be much more, but if there is, when we come back, like the chairwoman and I have been talking about a plan to come back to this committee at like a semi-annual time to update everyone on projects, so that if there are decisions that need to be made, we can talk about them, and that way it's not so much relearning every year. So that would be an example of something where in 6 months, I think we'll have much more information and we'll be able to talk about that. Yes, and when will the plan be done? Like, we just are about to award that contract, okay, so that's never done. And that will involve some, like, community engagement. Yes.
Yes, I'll go back. In terms of the Trinity Square, obviously, I think that, there's been some discussion on it. And Kyle have some information, is there, can planning, provide what status it is on to the councilwoman and the chairwoman?
Sure.
And us in the committee?
Yes.
It is quite a bit of significant money, $6.6 million. And we're not even sure when that's gonna be done, right? But according to this line, right, the money is available.
It is available.
It is available. And so when projects like this are not able to be implemented, that money is generating interest, right? Does the interest go to a general fund, or does it show up somewhere else where we, the city, have available money from the bond,
The interest stays in the bond.
in the bond account?
Correct.
Is there a balance right now? Maybe you discussed already. Is there a balance right now of what's the interest in the bonding?
So, we haven't done a full analysis of how much interest has been earned by bond. That is something that happens as part of our arbitrage calculations, which are done regularly. In the month of May, the PPA actually had to send $3 million back to the IRS because we had earned too much interest on the 2020 bond.
Oh,
So one of the things that I'm doing right now, Councilman, is going through and really trying to prioritize spending those dollars first where possible. However, unfortunately, the record keeping up until this point hasn't been done in a consistent format and in one central database. And so we're starting at a point where the direction I've given departments to complete this schedule was, don't reallocate anything. Just take the dollars that were previously awarded and roll them into the next year. If it's $20, I want to see a plan to spend them as quick as we can. I believe that when we have our 6-month regroup, we'll be talking about a lot of these projects in greater detail because we'll have the full 12 months and we'll have this current fiscal year closed out. And I'm anticipating that when we propose the CIP for fiscal year 2027, we will talk about reallocating some of these dollars that have been sitting idle. It's just unfortunately at this point in time, I'm not comfortable doing that until I can ensure that like every single purchase order that's out there is rectified and reconciled, and that we are very, very comfortable with the balances we have out there and encumbered. In conjunction with the cash we have on hand in our fields.
So going forward, as we're making interest, that should get allocated in the projects when it comes back to the council. But because there haven't been strong processes to do that, it's just all in one account. And it makes it more difficult.
so not knowing the numbers of the interest, but what is too much interest? What the IRS says you made too many. What's the threshold?
So if the bond, is in the first 3 years, there's no restriction, you can earn as much interest as you want, there's no arbitrage from that ratio. Being year 3 and 5, test is that you have to spend it in a plan that will distinguish all the funds in that 2-year period. And then our outside valuation firm does this arbitrage calculation. Where it exceeds the amount of the interest bond, then they put us on notice that next bond payment cycle, we may be responsible for the payment back to the services. So that would directly indicate just recently we gave back $3.2 million of what was $11 million in interest earned over an idle period of at least 3 years, bearing in mind, some of that came from the 2020 bond. We were just given the most recent round of term is known as the NSEC. The most recent round of their bond analysis is calling for a return of about 195,000 on about 6 different bonds, which is not bad considering they too sat for some at time until project spending. We're not required to make that determination until December because there may be opportunity where spending down might cure that. We've been advised by this firm not to do anything until December if necessary, to January, but it's a process that we monitor regularly.
Yeah.
Monthly.
Thank you. Then my last one is, in reference to all these matching funds. Well, actually, I have to, the matching fund, are you projecting essence, I mean, I know we're, difficulty times and with the federal government. Are there, grants already in the pipeline that
Yeah.
are requesting matching funds?
State
And-
Streets for All and Raise the awarded grants, 3 complete streets are awarded. The only one that's a holding is DEM. That's state funding, and we want that in particular because there's often bond money or other things that come out of DEM. But if we were able to use all this match, that would go back in the pot for reallocation in the next time.
And then the last one is in the public infrastructure improvements. That's a plan already that has been allocated within the city of Providence,
That's the Cathedral Square placeholder.
just for the Cathedral Square?
So once we have the projections back for the specifics that will happen there, that's too much money, we'll be able to reallocate that money somewhere else. But for now, it's the holding for Cathedral Square.
And the Cathedral Square, is that public land too, or
Yes,
it's not part of the,
it is.
it's a city land?
City land, ask me which department's responsible.
Well, that's.
None.
As we're going, it's just trying to get some clarity on these things, right?
Ask each director who wants to be responsible for it. No.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Also. All right,
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate you hanging in there, and I think we've covered a lot of ground. So, the plan is to finish up the CIP on Monday. That's going to be with the meeting on the sidewalks and the streets. Rather than that, and we're going to go this out. Maybe we will possibly be constantly. Or that is the looking for the city council. So, I just want to give everyone a heads up. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. With that, the motion can be.
Does I just amended?
As amended. Yes, it's not amended, okay, the motion is made by Councilor Ingersoll, seconded by Councilor Ray, all in favor? Aye. We're gonna miss you. On Monday, so it's just 3, we have to pull you back.
And me.
Yeah, but we need 6.
if not, be back in August, September. Maybe in September. You can be in September. You've had it be after 2 years.